Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rational Female Podcast. And we've got a great guest today, Theo Snodgrass. So he has been on the channel before, and I have also appeared on his channel. So what we're going to be talking about today is basically modern dating. So this is such a heavily, widely discussed thing in the kind of social, political, cultural zeitgeist. And we're going to kind of be talking mainly about dating apps because Theo's got some really interesting views on dating apps. And yeah, I guess we're going to just have a chat about, are dating apps good? Are they bad? Are they harmful? Are they positive? What is the effect of dating apps on modern dating? So, Theo, why don't you start by telling us your thoughts on what you think dating apps have done, whether they've been good or bad?
Sure. Okay. So, my thesis broadly is that I think dating apps are ruining society. I think it's a significant contributor. I think it's a significant contributor to what's wrong with our whole cultural rot that we're dealing with. A lot of our political problems that we're dealing with, especially in the United States, where I'm from. I think it's all. I think the man-woman problem is at the root of all of these things, right? So more now. That being said, I mostly think about what individual men should do. Like I'm a bottom-up thinker. I'm not a top-down thinker, right? So when I
Sorry,
talk
can
to
you said that before? Can you just clarify what you mean when you say you're a bottom up, not a top down thinker?
Right. So I think that I focus on what individual people can do in their sphere of influence to make their lives better. Because I think a lot of people focus on, Donald Trump is doing this or Benjamin Netanyahu's doing that or whatever. Especially, I hear a lot of young men talking about Israel. And I was like, I understand that you're concerned about that. That's super rad, bro. But what are we going to do today? Like, is your room is messy? Like, I mean, like you're not at the, so like a lot of guys, their life sucks not because of Benjamin Netanyahu, but because like they didn't get sunshine today and they haven't been to the gym and like, they don't have any social skills. So if they had like social skills, they'd probably be happier, right? So for most men, however, the majority of men, dating apps are functionally useless, right?
Okay.
So you're going to end up doing, you're going to end up swiping so many times and get relatively few matches. So there's not really a point. The other thing too is everyone you match with has a litany of other matches. And in order to, since, women have so many options now, because of Instagram and dating apps and so on. The only way to, I think, transition someone away from that and into like a meaningful, lasting relationship, I give to make a really strong impression. I think it's very hard to do over a dating app because dating apps, meeting someone for an app feels like getting an Amazon package. Like it's the impression, especially if you're a girl who's got a lot of matches, there's always another one, right? But meeting someone in person could feel like serendipity. Right. And that is powerful. And I also think since dating apps optimize for guys who have, really good pictures of themselves and guys who are tall and guys have a lot of superficial markers of attractiveness, like maybe they got like a nice car or, they can telegraph having a lot of money or they can, they're very tall or they're very good looking or whatever. If you're a guy and you're not any of those things, which is 80-90% of guys, your best shot is to meet someone in person and convey something with your natural charisma or charm. In person, there's so many other factors. You got pheromones. You got the ability to be like funny and interesting. You can like maintain eye contact. You can have a job. Like the thing is like so much of so many women that I talk to are so frustrated with the low caliber of men, and they're bored and they're irritated and they spend all day at their jobs. You don't understand how many women are just shit desperate for something interesting to happen. And if you like, here's the thing, this is the thing. If you get rejected, they may be super mean to you. This happened to me this weekend. They may be super mean to you. That may happen. But guess what? You gave them an interesting story to tell. So something interesting happened. You were something interesting, right? And now you have an interesting story to relate. And it does suck like at first, but like at the end of the day, who gives a shit? Jesus, who cares? Like, and I think the problem with that is like, at first I've kind of gone back and forth on this about like meeting people in person and just like walking up to people. But I'm starting to think it's like desperate times call for desperate measures. Like every way that we traditionally have of meeting people violates social norms now. You're not allowed to talk to people at work. You're not allowed to talk to people at the gym. You're not allowed to talk to people in public. You're not allowed to go up to people at bars because it's all creepy. And it's like you're not allowed to date someone who's more than 3 years younger or older than you because God forbid. But again, this is all like mate suppression. I'm throwing out terms. I'm throwing a lot of terms. Shout out to friend of my channel. But basically, like if you follow every single one of these arbitrary dating rules that didn't exist 2 years ago, if you do that, right? Or like pre-COVID, I guess. If you follow every single arbitrary dating rule, you will end up alone and never talking to anyone. I know it's like it sucks and you have to face social rejection, but you literally have to, I think, because there's no other option. Like dating apps are designed to keep you single. This is something I say a lot too. Dating apps make money when they have they attract venture capital when they have a big user base, right? So if you form a relationship, then you're no longer a user of the app. So they want you to be single and keep going back to the apps. The fact that you can buy a lifetime membership to Tinder or a lifetime membership to Bumble or a lifetime membership to Hinge is a sign that these are not apps that are moving people towards long-term stable relationships. That's not happening. So like, and I understand. Here's the thing. People say, I know people who got married off Tinder, and I do too. Getting married off Tinder is like using DoorDash to lose weight. It's like you can do it, but that's not what it's designed for. And that's not how it makes money, right? And the purpose of a system is what it does. And what it does functionally is keep people single. And to justify my original thesis, I do want to say, I think one of the main reasons that young women are so radical and so anti-male right now is because they've had so many sexual relationships that have broken apart. They've been treated disposably many, many, many times by men. And I think that actually not just makes them dislike men. I think that's the source of a lot of this like wild left-wing stuff that we're seeing from women. So it's like not just the feminism, but also like the radical leftward shift that we're seeing in basically at least the English speaking countries that I'm aware of. And I think like Japan and Korea are seeing something similar too. My theory is that's downstream of a lot of these relationships breaking apart, and that sense, and a lot of the also I think that was accelerated. I think that accelerated the problem, right? I think we still have the problem because there's a lot of reasons for that, but I think that's a big one. It's a strong. Humans are not supposed to break up that many times. Like you're not supposed to be like forming sexual relationships with people and then breaking them apart over and over and over again. Especially because like some people are very suited to some people prefer that mode of being, but for most people most of the time, especially women, that can be very disruptive to their emotional well-being. And I think dating apps, the guys who are using dating apps a lot, the guys who are using them serially, it's very unlikely that at any one woman that they match with is going to be able to secure a commitment from that guy. And a lot of the women who are matched with him do want to be committed to that guy, and they're going to be mad when they can't. And here's the thing: a lot of women. I'll say one more thing because I've been talking for 10 minutes. That's too long.
No, that's fine. You're good. Yeah.
I'll just do one more. I'm going to do one more. It's like, and this is, I think, it's the paradox of choice, right? So dating apps make it feel like you have unlimited options, but you actually don't. So because it makes it, I think a lot of women, they think they could date guys outside their area, and they can see like the richest guys in their area or the best guys in their area, and they could get a match with that guy, and they may even be able to exchange a few messages with that guy, but the reality is they're probably not going to get a commitment from that guy, but they don't necessarily know that. A lot of women don't distinguish between sexual attention and relationship attention. And there is a big difference, right? And so I think women to some degree get stuck on their highest setting, right? When they have a relationship with that guy and then he abandons them. I think they want to go find another guy at that level to secure commitment from. And the guys that want to commit to them, they're kind of like, ugh, right? Because they can get,
yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah, no, there's so much interesting stuff you just said. So yeah, so I'm gonna counter a bit of what you said. So
ahead.
I will give some personal anecdotes. I'm 28. I've been using dating apps since I was about 19. So I actually have found dating apps very useful because, and the main thing I was thinking, which maybe you slightly brushed on, is what is the alternative? Because a lot of people now don't actually know how to meet somebody offline. And I am someone who has met men both offline and online. And I think my experience, I don't know if my experience is a common experience, but I haven't actually found any real difference. So how will I go about this? Okay, so I had a few boyfriends as a teenager in school. They were not very good. I had my first sexual partner was abusive, and I met him through friends, which a lot of people say is very good, but unfortunately, this person was an extremely bad, dysfunctional man. After that, I had a boyfriend who I actually met on Tinder, and he was very, very nice. But unfortunately, the relationship ended, didn't last very long. It only lasted a few months. And after that, unfortunately, I started to get into the hookup culture. So I think what happened is that, unfortunate experiences and also my own personal struggles, like with mental illness and stuff at the time, and with limerence, and also just not really knowing how to navigate dating. Because I'm someone who, from a young age, so from probably like my early teens, I always wanted, a good boyfriend. I always wanted someone. I think I had this fantasy that I would fall in love and get married like by my early 20s, and I would be married at 21. I think I had this fantasy, and I think a lot of women have this fantasy. And I think the problem, and also I don't want to say it's all society's fault. I do think that I have some blame for that as well. And I just posted an article on my Substack today called The Nihilism of Casual Sex. And basically, for me, I think also, and people don't talk about this enough, there's a correlation between abuse and promiscuity. So that's obviously very serious. Women who have been abused are often promiscuous or become promiscuous. And I think that also, if a person doesn't have like a secure attachment or a secure sense of self, they probably won't have the best time. But in terms of cultural commentary, I think so. For example, in the old days, before feminism, say it's before second wave feminism, it was very simple. Men would ask a woman out, men would make the moves, and people generally expected sex to happen within the context of a loving relationship. And there were more kind of structure around everything. The parents would be involved. The idea would be for a man to meet a woman and bring him home to his parents, his mother, his father. It was all basically based around family and togetherness and community. And I think there's a lot of good in that. I'm not someone who would say we should return to just having sex within the concept confinements of marriage, because I just don't think that's realistic. And also in the past, people would get married at like 16. So it's different. Now most people get married, if they do, in their late 20s, early 30s. So I think that really we have to kind of, and I think this is actually a lot on women, women have got to return to a standard where, because the sexual revolution really messed things up for women. And I think that, because the sexual revolution was supported by some feminists, particularly liberal feminists like Helen Gully Brown, which a lot of people don't know, but there were a lot of feminists who were against it, the more radical feminists. And what happened with the sexual revolution is that it took sex away from being this idea of like a sacred bond, and it kind of went from one thing to the other, which was saying sex doesn't mean anything and you can just have free sex. And I think what women thought was that they would become very liberated and it would all be amazing. Actually, the majority of women, and I've spoken to women about this, most women do not actually enjoy casual sex. And I'm sure you would say the same, and the stats all say the same. And you're very correct. I think a lot of women do get very jaded because the problem is that a lot of women, if they're just mindlessly going through men, they become very resentful towards the men. For me, I think I was very cold isn't the right word. I was very detached, so I didn't really have this view. I was just kind of, I didn't really, I was very nihilistic actually in my whole attitude. And, for me also, I was kind of a replacement for alcohol because I had problems with alcohol in my late teens. And I think that, what happens is that when you start using sex almost like a drug or as a way to kind of feel better about yourself, it can start to mess up your perception of the opposite sex because,
Yes.
sex is not supposed to be. I think there's something kind of, somebody said this to me actually. I'm going to say who because they might not like it, but this person said to me, sex is supposed to be sacred when you think about it. And this person isn't even like necessarily religious. He's just saying like, it's supposed to be a sacred kind of thing. Like it's not supposed to be something that is just, and this nihilism of saying we can just have free sex and it means nothing. And I do kind of agree with you that dating apps have made that easier because dating apps, I think, are very useful if you want to hook up. It's very easy. If you want to go and have a hookup, it's very easy for a female to do that. Now, I will say, I have met a lot of men in person. I've met men bars or the beach or through friends. I have had boyfriends, and everything for me has just crumbled, which makes me think, what did I do wrong? I don't think it's necessarily all other people's fault. I think I had some blame in that, but so I don't know if I would say for myself, is it because of dating apps or is it just what's the difference? But I would say that in general, the whole culture around dating and around seeing sex is very like, and also most men expect sex very quickly anyway. And I think women feel like they have to do that. And like the problem is that most women want exclusivity and they want stability in a relationship.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if a man is able to just have sex, very quickly within the first few dates, then women are not really getting what they want. So actually, it's quite messed up. And also, what I want to say as well, what's really interesting is that you would think that a lot of men would like the fact that they're just now able to have hook up easy sex with women. But actually, most men are just complaining about it and saying like women are now unmarriageable because women are just having all of this, sex, and there's no kind of, most men can't even find a wife. I suppose you yourself would say you're in that position. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Is it's ostensibly good for men. And let me say, it's fucking gross though. I'll be honest with you. And I'll tell you one thing is like even the men who are having all the sex are not happy. And this is something I think a lot of men are boxed out of dating for the most part, and it's very, 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 very challenging. But the men who are sort of like monopolizing the sex on the apps, let's say, they're not happy either because they're becoming very nihilistic, and they also feel like all that. Here's the thing: anybody who thinks that like having a lot of sex is going to make them happy just hasn't had a lot of sex before. It ends up being empty, and you can't fill the hole inside of you that craves intimacy and connection and love and stability is not going to be filled with casual sex. It's like drinking salt water. It's not
like
working.
Drinking alcohol all the time or doing drugs. It's the same kind of thing, I would say.
Yes, exactly. And so that's not scratching that itch that's leading to stability and connection and intimacy and love and community integration. And the thing is, like, monogamy is actually a necessary precondition for a stable society. It's not negotiable. And I know I get into fights with people. I had a polyamorous friend of mine, a polyamorous lesbian friend, who's now just a regular straight woman now. She got a lesbian divorce, I guess, and it's a whole thing. She's a friend of mine, and we got into a fight. And said that me like saying monogamy was good. It's like, it's weird that you're so obsessed with what other people are doing with their genitals. That's weird. And I was like, that's just like a stupid way to frame it, because it's a necessary. We're talking about what kind of society is going to be stable, safe, and comfortable to raise children. and where women are going to be safe from violence because they don't really have tools to protect themselves from violence, and where men are going to be less violent and more pro-social in their behavior. And if you look at the data, monogamy is the best way to do that, right? So when you disrupt monogamy, you disrupt everything, and everybody's unsatisfied. Even the women who are getting all the attention on the apps, you think, oh, the hottest, sexiest girls that are getting all the attention, they must be, nope, they're unhappy. Oh, these guys that are getting all the sexual access, are they happy? No, they're not happy either. The guys who are balked out of sex, your beta, your gamma, your delta, your omega males, whatever, right? Those guys, the boxed out of sex, they're not happy. Nobody's happy. And what's crazy is, like, when you lose normal guys, that's when you this is something Fox Day used to say, is when you lose the deltas, society's cooked. And so if you lose your normal everyday working dude who earns a good living, and he's like an electrician or something, he's doing a job that is necessary to maintain the world, right? He goes to work, he gets his paycheck, he, has his life that he's built. When that guy can't find a wife, he's going to be like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, that's
right?
very bad. Yeah.
And that's a huge part of what women, I don't think, understand. Oh my God, there's so much that women don't understand about men. I knew men didn't understand women, but really I'm finding out women don't understand men. Men, a big part of what motivates us to just get out of the house and not end it all is women, like making women happy, feel like women love us and support us and think we're cool, like that. And it takes so little of that encouragement to really just like put a fire under a man's ass and get him out there and get after it. It's like Nos in the gas tank. I don't know if you're familiar with the Fast and Furious franchise, but it's like Nos in the gas tank. That's okay. It's only in the first couple movies. You don't have to watch them. You don't have to watch any of them, actually. They're not good. But the point is,
I'm not that into action films, actually. But yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking, actually, men, I would say, are probably less likely to become abusive if they're actually having regular sex in a committed marriage, because obviously that is a need for men, but also with marriage comes love and comes, intimacy. I'm talking in a good marriage. And if you have men who are just, not able to have any kind of partnership with anybody, they're going to become frustrated. And that's where they become very aggressive and dangerous. And that's why we have all these incels. Like, it's a very uncomfortable topic, but I've heard people talk about this, and it's actually very serious. So what monogamous marriage does, it provides stability, and it gives everyone the idea, of having, like, we were talking earlier, I've been watching The Office, and I just watched the episode where Jim and Pam get married, and it's like, Jim Halbert, he's very much just a regular guy, and he is a guy who, he kind of represents, the modern everyman. And he, like Pam, I mean, I think personally Pam is lovely. She's very much a very nice, genuine, stable lady. I imagine a lot of men would probably want somebody like that as a wife, quite level-headed, quite stable, playful, nice. Like, that's that's a very nice lady. So yeah, it's terrible. And I think I guess, like, but what is the alternative to dating apps? Because, like, if how are people supposed to find a long-term partner? I mean, I do know someone as well who got married and they met online. Dating apps can be very, very useful. They can provide a utility. And maybe, well, what is the alternative?
Sure. No, and I hear that, because, like, I don't know what the percentage, something like 70% of relationships now start online, something like that. Almost everybody that does meet is meeting on the apps. That's definitely true. I think now what I would say, like, remember, I mostly give advice to men, and for most men, I obviously, with women, it is definitely way more likely that you're going to match with people. And if you use them strategically, I know the people I know who've used dating apps effectively, they get on there, they match with a couple guys that they think are good, and they filter based on that. But if you end up just like swimming in matches and you're just going on for the dopamine rush of the attention, that process is very addictive. So I would say, be careful. Some people can probably handle it. Some people probably can't. But and in general, it's bad. For men, though, most men, they're functionally useless. It's just, so you're better off. And what I say to people who say cold approach is a low percentage strategy, first of all, that I agree. And we're in a low trust society now, so cold approach is really tough. I'm not disputing any of that. That's true. But it's always been a low percentage strategy. That's true. Even the best pickup artists, when pickup was hot in like 2009 through 11, right? even the best guys would go 1 for 9. They would convert on 1 for 9. Like, you were dealing with a lot of rejection just walking up to somebody who, you know, doesn't have any reason to be interested in you, trying to convince them to be interested in you out of thin air. That's tough. You're supposed to fail a lot. I would say, and also I would say law of large numbers is at play. And I said this, is a really tough conversation I had with myself because I'm single. What I said was, I may have to meet 1,000 women to find a marriageable one. Right. But if I meet 1,000, I'm not going to meet 0 marriageable women. If I meet 1,000, there's got to be at least one, right? You might just have to embrace law of large numbers. It's like if you cold call 1,000 people and ask them if they want to buy a motorcycle, right? Most of them are going to say no, right? But one of them might be like, it's so crazy. I was thinking about getting a motorcycle. You might, right? And that's kind of what we're up against. And people will say, oh, well, Theo, it's not even worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze. These women are rude, blah, 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 blah. This is what I would say. Now, look, I'm Catholic. This is well known. And in the Bible, it indicates that if you are able to find a good wife, that's equivalent to like the most valuable treasure you could possibly imagine, right? Okay. So if it's true that a good wife is the most valuable treasure you could possibly imagine, then any amount of work you would have to do to secure one would be worth it. Right. So even if you have to meet 1,000 women, and I'm not saying you have to date 1,000 women, you can have a 20-minute conversation with 1,000 women. Right. And then in that 20 minutes, you may find out, if you know what to listen for, a lot of women will just say all their red flags right when they first meet you. And then you can be like, oh, okay, you're clearly a feminist. You take care. You don't have to be rude about it. You get their Instagram, you look through it. Are there, pronouns in bio? Is she, posting pole dancing videos? Is she, a political online activist? Is she a big feminist? That'll all be right there on her social media. You could just scroll through it. And if she's posting like anti-male stuff really frequently or whatever, you could just dip. But I'm telling you, I know it feels impossible, but if you can just, I think law of large numbers as a man is your best bet. I truly don't know what to say to women. I'll be honest with you, because you guys are kind of waiting to be approached in some sense. And men, I think there's a lot more burden to approach. So it's like, I think it's easier to kind of kick men in the ass and get them out there. I don't know, because here's the thing. It used to be a woman could like drop the handkerchief and a guy would be like, hey, you dropped your handkerchief. And she's like, oh, I did, didn't I? Boom. And then you got the guy you wanted, but he also got to feel like it was his idea the whole time and that he made the first move. So everybody wins through like 7 layers of plausible deniability. Everybody gets what they want. Everybody wins. And we've completely broken down all those social rituals, so women have no idea.
It's very confusing for me personally anyway. I think that's another reason why I like dating apps, because like, I mean, I'm someone who I'm very literal, so I can't always tell. Like, I get very confused sometimes. I miss social cues, and I can get very like, so dating apps are quite easy for me because they're very literal and direct. But the thing is, right, I've heard so many men online, like there's this guy I follow, you've probably heard of, called Dad Mode and Dark Mode, saying the same things as you in terms of like talking about how modern women are. And because I don't watch this kind of content, like I don't really watch, women on TikTok. I watch people talking about that, but I don't watch women on I don't go on TikTok. I go on TikTok to post. I go on Instagram to post and watch videos maybe of like Disney or like some woman doing her hair, but I don't actually watch these women going, oh my God, you need to find a man who's like this, blah, 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 blah. So for me, like, it's strange because I don't know anybody like that. But I will say, in terms of in my personal life, the people I do know, I think that, because like my close friends, for example, they're not really overtly political. I would say they don't really know, like some of them wouldn't even know what feminism is. But I think that because people, if they're not necessarily aware or tuned into this stuff, they won't understand the bias. So, for example, if somebody sees something on Instagram, like there's a lot of this content now on the internet where it's like women just saying men are trash, and it's, I had to tell somebody close to me, I don't want to see this because I don't like it. And they were very respectful, but it was like, because people aren't thinking about the gynocentrism, and even myself, like, because I'm becoming much more like tuned into this now, I think because I'm really thinking about it so much more now, I mean, I've been thinking about it for years, but it's like even more so because of experience and stuff. The cultural messaging that we are being given all the time is designed to tear women and men apart. And it's
Yes.
just, I don't want to curse because of the algorithm, but it's just so effing
Yes.
awful. I hate it. And, you know, most men, you mentioned that women are waiting to be approached. You know, I have asked men out, and, you know, I feel like, you know, most guys will say, yeah, that's fine. They'd love to. And
Yeah.
men are scared to make the first move, you know. So, like, you know, I'll say to a guy, do you want to go for a coffee or something? They say, yes, that's great. We'll go out. And, you know, it's like most men, like, you're thinking, why isn't he saying anything? Why do I have to say something? Because most men, they're not very assertive. They're not, you know, assertive. They're not forward. They're not dominant. And I think men now are too scared to pick up women. And they're very scared. It's really annoying, actually.
Yeah. I know. And I think it sucks because, like, so I talk to women about this a lot. I talk to men about this a lot. The young men especially are very scared, and they're not wrong to be scared that they're going to get like aired out on TikTok, or that it's going to be like it's going to become an HR problem, or that they're going to get, you know, there are a lot of systems in place that punish men for. This is a great point, by the way. I do want to return to that. That's a great point. There is a small difference between stated preference and revealed preference. That's the only caveat I would add to that. A lot of times a woman won't date a man with an electrician degree until she meets a tall, hot one. And then as soon as he's like tall and hot in front of her and she watches him like fix a light bulb or change a tire or something, she's like, oh. And then she changes her mind, right? Like a lot of times you got to take these opinion polls with a grain of salt, right? Like, but where was I go with that? What were we talking about before I went off on this?
We were saying,
men approaching. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So there are a lot of systems in place that do punish men, and women will make fun of you on TikTok, and they will talk shit about you, and they will be super rude to you to your face. My thing is this, though, you just have to learn to tolerate it. And that's hard because we've trained men. One of the things we've done, I think, that this is harmful, deeply harmful, is if we've said being a creep to women is the worst thing in the world you can be. And so whatever you do, don't creep. Yeah. And so it's like, and then what we did, here's the thing. It's not worse than being a murderer. It's not worse than, you know, all these other things. And here's the thing. What I would say to this is like, learning to talk to women romantically is like playing the violin. It takes time to get good. And when you first start, it's horrible. Now, the thing is, you can play the violin in the privacy of your home where no one has to hear you. And then when you pop out with your violin, you can be good. Talking to women isn't like that. You just got to eat shit like 100 times before it even have one that goes well. Right. It's really hard to learn to talk to women, especially if you're like naturally socially awkward, or you're not a very tall guy, or you don't have any of these like natural stat bumps. Like if you have a good face or whatever, or you're tall or something, or if you're naturally physically whatever, then you get a little stat boost. But a lot of times those guys are awkward around girls too. Like they just don't know. It's just because we're fucking terrified of you guys, because your judgment means the end of our bloodline. When you say no to us, you're like, you don't deserve to procreate. Your bloodline ends with you, sir. You can procreate, but you got to procreate with somebody who's not as good as me. You got to go. That, you know, we're terrified of that, right? And you have to learn. I do stand-up comedy, so I'm used to putting myself into awkward social situations and having it not go well and like having to shrug that off. So compared to that, talking to women I don't know is like whatever. I've talked to like hundreds of women I don't know at once. Why would I care about talking to one? And if she rejects me, who cares? There's 100 more out there. I don't want a woman who doesn't want me. I want one who thinks I'm like the bee's knees, the cat's pajamas, like the coolest thing since sliced bread. That's what I want. I want that girl. Because that's gonna be better. And if you don't think I'm cool, I'm just gonna go talk to someone else. I understand why most men can't function that way, though. Most men,
no, they can't. And you know, a lot of men take it very personally. I mean, because I'm thinking now, because also like I've had very mixed experiences with both genders in different contexts, and I find that with my generation, I'm not someone who wants, even though a lot of men in my experiences haven't necessarily been great. I don't want to start saying that all men are trash, because I have had some decent experience with the guys too. But I would say what it is that most people now are jaded, they're immature, and they're just fed up. And I think if you have depression, if you have anxiety, it's going to affect you as well. It's going to mess you up. and it's going to mess up your ability to have healthy interactions with the opposite
Yeah.
sex. Like, I've got some very good friendships, like positive male friendships. I've got a great relationship with my dad and my brother. I mean, my experience though is that most people, I think we've all been very negatively affected by all this confusion. And it's like, you know, again, if I go personal a little bit, if I think of like somebody, you know, even somebody I went out, like was seeing very briefly, you know, like in the last year, you know, foreign, intelligent, charming, good job, older than me. And I think, you know, this guy seems so fantastic. And unfortunately, it's just all a lie because this person doesn't want to commit to me. And that's when I start thinking, okay, yes, this is all my fault. Why have I done this? And what is wrong with me? And it's like, this is why I've decided, you know, I don't want to go out with anybody for like quite a while until I really, really like work through my personal stuff. Because it's like, I don't know, I feel like as a woman, if you go for the kind of guy you actually want, they don't want to commit to you. But then if you go for a kind of guy who is interested in you, they're just very wishy-washy and confused. So it's just really, really exhausting and confusing. Right. And it's like, what are we even doing? Well, we're all just drowning here. It's really, really sad. I know this sounds very depressing, and this is like me kind of moping a bit, which I don't mean to do.
No, you're right.
But, yeah.
What you're saying is deeply true. So one of the things that I want to focus on is I was like, okay, because this is, you know, at one point I was a very active participant in the hookup culture, and now I'm not. So, I mean, I'm still talking to people, but I'm not actively pursuing casual sexual relationships at this time. Like, I would like to get married because I'm Catholic, but that's going to require meeting a person. I'm still in the process of meeting 1,000 women. That's my goal. And, but I think everyone I talk to is basically in that same boat. You know, my goal is like, how do I get these guys who have good intentions to be less awkward around girls? Because a lot of times if you're awkward around girls, they're just not going to give you a shot. That's just what it is, even if your intentions are good. And a lot of times you're awkward because your intentions are good and you don't know how to convey that. And because talking to women is a complex skill, if you do it and it goes badly, it feels horrible. It's the worst social humiliation that you can feel, and you have to just go deal with that. And a lot of guys respond to that by, well, I'll never do that again. Now, I do stand-up comedy, so I learned to run towards that feeling of social humiliation, not away from it. And you just have to embrace the suck a little bit, because that's the buy-in cost of getting good. And here's the thing, you get humiliated like a million times when you talk to a woman who's actually pleasant and interested in you. Then you'll be like, it'll be so much easier, and you won't be nervous and it won't go terribly, right? That's necessary, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm trying to think, like, because I know there are women who want to, the women want, well, the men I talk to definitely want to form stable relationships. I think a lot of women say they don't need a man, they don't want relationships or whatever, but I think that's mostly cope.
No, that's complete nonsense. I mean, most females that I know, like, but then maybe it's, I don't know. I think most women really want a fairy tale. I think most women want some romantic fantasy, and unfortunately modern society, and I would say that's women who both are feminists versus who are not feminists. I think women want some fantasy that doesn't actually exist, because people don't actually have realistic expectations or views of what love or relationship actually looks like.
Yeah. No, that's true. We have, well, one of the things that had happened is, this is flirting with modern women is like walking through a minefield with a wooden stick. That's true. I'll be real, I do get yelled at a lot, and I have to have a lot of very frustrating conversations. I have all the time. Yeah, it's rough. They don't fucking like us anymore. It's rough, but I don't care, because like I said, I'm a comic.
Yeah, I'm a comic.
So it's like, it's like, whatever. I walk it off. What did we say right before that? We were talking about.
I keep forgetting. I have to keep making notes. Yeah, I mean, I will say though, then, because I wonder if modern relationships in general are dying, because in the past they worked because men and women needed each other to survive. But now it's like we don't need each other because women can earn their own money. There's welfare and there's additional support. And I'm not against welfare. I am kind of left leaning on many things, but I think that, you know, like, we've got this now death in families and marriage. And for me, I just boil it back down to my main thing, which is feminism, the ideology of splitting up men and women, this misandry and they're saying that, men and women don't need a man. Like you were saying earlier, that, a lot of women you meet say they don't need men. And I was saying, I think what women want is a fairy tale. And I think
Oh, right.
most
Yeah.
women want a man to love them and look after them. And I think that before, women were taught in the past how to be a wife. Like you were taught how to behave around men, and men were taught to be courtly and chivalrous and gentlemanly. This idea, we talked about this in another stream,
Yeah.
feminine modesty and masculine honor. And I think it's
Yeah.
very sad that's all gone now. And, I don't support this. I don't support hookup culture. I don't
Yeah.
support, I do think, yes, each to their own, fine. And a lot of people in my life, they're quite like, they don't really care. They just wouldn't, they're not necessarily politically inclined. But it's the problem that most young people in their 20s and 30s are all kind of sucked into this culture now.
Yeah.
And it's very, very kind of, I don't know, like I think it's just messed everything up. So that's why now we have this mass rise of online dating advice, because people can't find a partner. As you said, you're gonna talk to 1,000 women. I don't even know. I'm not even thinking about marriage, but I think that it's very, very exhausting. And I don't know, like, I can see why one would say dating apps have contributed, in the sense that, yes, they are based on making money. They're based on, keeping oneself single. I think they expose you to a lot more people than you would otherwise be exposed to. And I think that the idea of dating apps should be you're looking for someone with similar interests. You can filter for things like religion. You can filter for political you can put certain things to filter for. I don't know. I think in terms of like actually meeting people, I've had the same experience online, offline,
Sure.
but it's hard as well because most women match, unless you're like really horrible looking, most women are going to have matches and going to be able to meet men. But a lot of men on apps are not looking for a girlfriend. But I don't know. I would say the same goes in real life. A lot of men as well, even in day to day, are not necessarily looking for commitment, or they might, I don't know. I feel like it's a culture now where it's like most men they're not necessarily thinking about commitment, or they don't know what they want. And a lot of women are very hostile and angry. So the whole culture around the way we relate to each other is just very, very exhausting and confusing.
So, well, okay. So there's a lot going on here. I think part of this is there's a couple of reasons. I think something you touched on earlier, that women have been sort of propagandized to have a very unrealistic ideas about what a relationship looks like. And but there's also been a lack of good relationships around people. Like it used to be, there was a lot more integration of extended families. So you knew a lot of married people. So you saw a lot of examples of what a relationship looked like. And you're like, I like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. And you had to date people that were kind of in your local network. And I think a lot of women they can go on dating apps and they could see men who are outside of their social sphere. And they're like, oh, if I married that guy, it would change my life circumstances for the better. I'm going to go try to marry that guy. But they don't, like, that guy will have sex with them, but won't offer them commitment. And so women get this idea. Women get this idea. Men are wishy-washy and don't know what they want. That guy doesn't like you, but wants to keep having sex with you. He likes you enough that he doesn't want you to go have sex with anybody else. That's how much he likes you. He likes you enough that he doesn't want to give you up, but he also doesn't want to commit to you. He just wants you to be in this convenient liminal space where he can get unlimited sexual access to you without giving you anything, because, for whatever reason, you don't have what he's seeking. And that's not going to change. There are women who get out of that space, just like there are men who get out of the friend zone. But for the most part, once you're locked in, you're not getting out of that space. And that causes a ton of pain to women who are locked in that space, because they're giving so much and getting so little, and they take that out on the next guy. But the reality is, this is what I could say, it's the illusion of choice, because it's like, you're not really going to get what you want from that guy. So that's not really an option. It feels like an option. All the signs are telling you that's an option.
Yeah, and it's very hard to tell as well, because I think a lot of women just can't tell.
Right. They don't. I think there's a huge theory of mind problem. There's this concept in evolutionary psychology called failure of cross-sex mind reading. And it's very basically, it's when It's when if you're a woman and you do something and I don't know why you did it, I'm going to assume you did it. I'm going to assume you thought about it like a man would have thought about it. And if I do something to you and you're like, okay, a perfect example. I'm going to use an example from everyday life. Let's say you got a married couple, right? Wife said she's got a casserole in the oven. She says, put the casserole in the fridge. He takes the casserole dish out and puts it in the fridge. Now, what did he do wrong? He didn't, what she wanted him to do was dice it up, put it into Tupperware, stack it neatly in the fridge in storage, right? But he didn't know that because he didn't think about it. But she thinks he must have done that passive aggressively on purpose. This is weaponized incompetence. He's trying to get at me because I did because that kind of passive aggressive warfare is what women do to each other. But
I can't stand it.
Like
it's horrible.
Right?
The passive aggressive thing from women, I hate it because I also I actually don't actually think like that. I'm very, very literal. Like for example, and also I'm not also the best at reading people's facial expressions either. So for example, like when my brother is talking to me, I tend to assume he's angry with me because his face is very flat. And I think I read this in a book about like male and female psychology. Like men tend to like have a similar resting face. And it's like, I tend to be like, oh my God, are you angry with me? And they're like, no. They're very confused. I think women invent all these terrifying, like horrible scenarios in our minds all the time. We catastrophize because we're very, very emotional. So we just catastrophize things constantly.
Yes.
And I don't know.
Well, okay, this is important. Men don't know you're doing that. So it always feels like we don't know you're doing that. So it feels like we don't, because we don't do that at all. We just sit there.
Wow.
So much of our lives is just, this is great. But we don't understand. But here's the thing. As a man, part of your job is to know that she's got this insane, coked up hamster running around in her brain all the time, trying to make her feel bad about stuff. And here's the thing. Yes. And as a guy, your job is to be like, okay, but you're not supposed to jump in and get emotional with her. Like just because she's upset doesn't mean you're upset. A lot of times she's looking at you to get grounded, to feel stable. She's reality testing her ideas. Right. So it's like, hey, I have this insane thing that I'm worried about. I'm just going to say a lot of times women, they'll just be like, I'm going to say all the things I'm worried about right in a row. And men will stop her. They'll stop her at like the third thing she's worried about. And they'll try to be like, well, have you tried drinking more water? She's not done talking yet. Just if you just let her finish, a lot of times she didn't even need help. She just needed to say it out loud and she feels better. And because she did that for you and you offered her stability and calmness, she's going to feel close to you. You guys have just connected. She's going to see. Oh my God. You know what I'm saying?
You're describing the relationship with my brother very well. Like he's like, I will just talk and he just goes, yeah, okay. Okay. I think he's very used to me now because he's much better at reading people and social cues anyway than I am. So he can tell he's very, very good at reading me. So I get that totally. That's really interesting. All these books, like I've read some books like Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. It's really interesting, but it's like the problem is that feminists will say that society is like reinforcing this, and it's not society. We literally are wired differently. Like even women who might be, say, more masculine or more logical are still female. Even men who are more effeminate or metrosexual, whatever, they're still male. You know, you have a man's brain, I have a female brain. You know, so like we are different. You know, I mean, even though I call myself the rational female, I still have a female brain. I might be able to intellectualize things a bit more than, say, the average woman or whatever, but I still have an emotive female brain. And I think that masculine energy of like stoicism, groundedness, resilience, because that's what a father tends to give, whereas a mother tends to give more like warmth, more kind of emotion. And it's like, this is very Freudian, but like we're kind of looking for like our parents, aren't we? Really, like men are looking for someone who's like the mother, women are looking for someone who's like the father, because those are our primary caregivers. And it's like, if you try and mess that up and like get rid of the natural way in which men and women think about things and relate to each other, like it's really gonna mess things up. So I don't know, man. I mean, if we dial it back to dating apps, I guess also the problem is with dating apps is like because you're talking to a screen, there's no way to gauge the person's emotion. Whereas if you meet someone in real life, you might be able to gauge a sense of them. But on an app, like you don't, because there's no we read messages in our own tone of voice. We don't read messages in what the other person's voice or tone is.
Yes. And listen, honestly, I could be great over text, and then you meet me in person, and I'm like shy and nervous and avoiding eye
Yeah, a lot
contact
of
and all that
people are
stuff.
like that. They're chatty in
Yeah.
text. You talk to them, they're just like got nothing to say.
No, and I'm like I'm super I'm the opposite. I'm super confident in person, and I don't care to send messages back and forth all day because we're not pen pals. Like that's not I don't have that many things to say, especially in the era of chatbots, like where you could just plug your messages into Grok or whatever and be like, hey, what should I respond to this with? And like people are doing that now, and people are, men, because men are desperate, so they're adapting. They're trying to adapt and figure out some way to
Is that
some way
where
to game it.
all men's dating profiles all look the same? I mean, in London where I live, every man has like been to 40 countries and works in finance and has a dog and like drinks beer on the weekends. And it's like traveling, partying, work. That's
Okay.
all they do.
Well,
Which to
here's
me
the
is
thing.
very
Yeah.
boring.
So this is there's not that much deviation in the middle of the bell curve. And that's true
Okay.
for most women. Are this is what's so frustrating, especially in the era of social media where people are downloading their personality from TikTok. People are just like I know we all like to think that we're special individual fairy creatures, but we're a lot more similar to each other than any of us would like to admit. But what's crazy is like normies aren't getting with normies. Like those guys that have been to 40 countries and work in finance, they should be married to these like normie girls that get their whole personality from TikTok and aren't interesting. These people that are wholly uninteresting and have no hobbies should be married to each other. That's who should, and they have children that go to prep school and then also grow up to have no hobbies, right? Like these same, and the cycle continues forever, right? That's what was supposed to be happening, and it's not now, dude.
Yeah. No, you're marrying the AI in Japan, absolutely. I did write because you mentioned earlier about the drop the handkerchief or something. I remember Matthew Hussey talking about that because like he's a dating coach, and I actually started reading this book he wrote about like finding men, and he was like, just go out and talk to more men. And I think also like as well, and I touched on this briefly, if you have anxiety, because I myself I am an extrovert, but I do have a lot of like very serious problems. And if you've got anxiety, or if you've got serious trauma, or if you've got this problem or that, or if you're neurodivergent, like it's going to be very, very difficult. So I think that's another reason why dating apps can be helpful. But maybe the solution would be, and this is a very radical solution, which you probably agree with. What if dating apps are all completely destroyed? People would then have to go out and talk to each other. If dating apps were just gone completely, because if you had if dating apps had never existed, people would be able to meet organically. And I don't know. I mean, maybe that should happen.
They would have to. And I also, I don't know. That's obviously that'd be stupendous. I think dating apps are something where it feels like you're doing something. It feels like progress, but it's actually keeping people. It's keeping more people single than it's hooking people up. I think it's doing more to keep people single than it is to get people together. But it feels like doing something. A lot of our culture now is like applying for jobs on LinkedIn feels like looking for a job, even though none of them ever get back to you. And
a lot of what we do now is just BS. It's like you're doing a lot of things, applying for a lot of jobs, sending a lot of emails, and it's just rubbish. It's all useless rubbish.
Yes, and it's substituting things that used to be like, okay, imagine the difference between applying for a job on LinkedIn versus going to a place that you would like to work and talking to the people who work there and trying to figure out a way in that way. Think how different that is. And it's the same with dating. There's a huge difference between dating apps, which are functionally useless for most men, right? And very, I think it's like I said, it's like drinking salt water for a lot of women, right? Versus talking to humans in person. And by the way, I'm not necessarily limiting that to approaching women in bars, because that was like, again, that was really only popular in like the 80s and 90s. And then like after that, like in the 2000s and later, it's people were still doing it, right? But that's this is like a brief time in the late 20th and early 21st century, post-sexual revolution, pre-dating app, where that was normal. This is a brief thing in human history. Historically, like you were saying, people used to meet people through like friends or through community or through church groups or whatever.
But
You know what I
also
mean?
in those settings, you would have their reputation. So, for
Yes.
example, if someone had a bad, because now, like, because I've met people in real life, and because like someone might have you don't really know people anymore, even if there's
Yeah.
someone in your social circle. Whereas in the old days, you like everyone would talk about it because it was like society was like that. It was more close knit. I think this is also a London thing because I live in a big city like London. I know you live in Vegas, but London is like that. Like there's I mean,
Yeah.
I've never, it's very rare if you go out with someone, it's very rare you'll ever bump into them again because it's just such a huge city with so
Yes.
many people. So, yeah, I think there's a problem with cities as well, to be honest.
No,
It's a
that's
big
true.
problem.
You're exactly right. So if you're in a small community, especially if you grew up with those people, then you know
Yeah.
them, you know their whole family. They can't screw you over because there's a strong incentive to maintain your reputation. Because if that guy screws you over, then he's the guy who screwed you over, and everybody knows it. He's gonna have to leave that village if he wants to screw somebody else
Yeah.
over. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Right,
but like cities give cover to psychopaths, like guys who
yeah.
just walk around repeatedly using people and abandoning them. They have in big city, they can just keep doing that forever. They don't have to move.
Absolutely, yeah. So anyway, we're close to the end. I do want to touch on one more thing that you and I briefly talked about. So you said before that most men find most women attractive, but most women don't find most men attractive. That's such an interesting. So just laughing at this comment. I know the guy who's running London is a psychopath. Yes, Khan is go away. But there's an election in a few days. Anyway, yeah. So most women don't actually find most men physically attractive, but most men do find most women physically attractive. So
Yes.
can you please elaborate on that?
Okay, yeah. So this is about mating strategies. So most men find most women at least somewhat attractive. They'll look and be like, she's all right. Because it's true that men do decide who they like based they put more stock in physical appearance than women do. That's true, and they're biologically wired with it. But the difference is they're less picky than women think. Women think men are a lot pickier than they are because they're projecting. Because women are very picky about the men they like and the men they don't. Okay, so most men find most women at least somewhat physically attractive. There's very few women that are just like absolute no's. Now there may be a guy who's it's not that there are no men who have high standards, right? But women really, they like the men they like. That what I say on stage is we like women in general and women like men in particular. They like ones they like the ones they like, and the rest of them they could kind of give a fuck about. And what women don't realize, and this is what gets at the women don't need men idea. It's like no, but like the circumstances that allow her to pay all her bills with her job where she makes Excel spreadsheets and sends emails, that job doesn't need to exist. What allows that job to exist is a bunch of men who are in the trenches maintaining sewer lines and electricity and infrastructure and all that stuff. And those guys that are maintaining the society aren't able to find wives, so they're losing their motivation, and young guys coming up are not taking those jobs. So that's so this gets into so women need men whether they're aware of it or not. But men, we like you guys so much more than you realize. That's what I think is screwing me up.
Is like men tend to sorry to interrupt. I think men tend to say I love women, and I did a short on this. Men usually love women and say I love women. Women rarely say I love men. I also wonder if there's a protective aspect, because if there's a woman, like if I start going around saying I love men, that can attract very dangerous, not to be rude, but it can attract the wrong attention. So I would not feel comfortable saying that. But if I was to say, for example, like I love my brother or I love my dad, I think that, women tend to show less general empathy towards men, but men tend to show a lot of empathy towards women. Like a guy will have, say, like a female he's friends with, and he'll like do a lot for her and like not necessarily expect anything in return. He just is her friend. But whereas if a girl has a guy friend, she usually like
Yeah.
wants something from him, which is one of the reasons why some people say like friendships, like men being friends with women doesn't benefit men. That's very, very red pill. I don't fully agree with that. But, I think like, yeah, women tend to, like, for example, if I'm with a male friend, or a guy that I'm not necessarily in any kind of thing with, he'll usually pay. Like, men will always just say, it's okay, I got this, I got this, I got this all the time. They'll
Yeah.
just buy you the food, they'll buy you the drinks. It's very, it's kind of funny, but it's like, well, I'm not going to say no. So,
Well, yeah. Well, here's the
I
thing.
mean, even if I offer to pay, the guy will say, nah, it's fine, I got this.
Yeah, I would say the bit this has implications for women being in power too, and so I'll say what it very simply: men care about women as a class, and women do not care about men as a class. Men
That's
care
true.
about women at the bottom of the hierarchy, and you can see that in the laws, all these alimony laws we complain about
Yeah.
in the English common law tradition, which America shares. All these divorce and alimony laws were set up by men so that men could not abandon their families. All these legal provisions for widows and orphans. That's men caring about women as a class, even the women at the bottom of the hierarchy. Women do not care about the men at the bottom of the hierarchy. They don't care about men. Men could fall off the bottom of the world and die, and women wouldn't care, right? Because they're not. Well, they're not. It's about mating strategies, I think, at base. Like, women are supposed to, they're the judges. They're supposed to figure out which men are winners and which men are losers, and then make sure that the winners pass on their genes and the losers die off. And that sucks, because once you see that, it's harsh. There's a harshness to it that's unfortunate, but you kind of gotta, as a man, you kind of gotta embrace it. Like, people aren't gonna care about you unless you give them a reason, and that's tough, but you got to accept it. Whereas women, I think people are going to, like, if you're a woman and you're in the middle of a shopping mall crying, someone will come and be like, hey, are you all right? Do you need help? You'll be surrounded by people. Whereas if you're a man and you're crying,
well,
people will be
I had
like,
a very serious panic disorder. So I had like almost every day of my life, I was passing out and collapsing. And like, yeah, people will always come and help you. I mean, I think, because I even used to think to myself, like, I think if I were a guy, I'd probably be dead. I would probably not like want to unalive myself, because I think, like, thank heavens I'm a female and people are generally nicer to females. Like, if you're a woman, people will give you more attention, they're more helpful.
Yeah.
I do still think that there isn't enough, like, I think mental health in general, that's a huge problem in general. But I don't know, like, I think it's very true. Women also tend to prioritize other women over men. Like, so women tend to say, like, oh yeah, for women everything is so hard, whereas I try and say it's hard for men too, because I'm trying to operate from I want to say from a humanitarian perspective. And the problem as well is that I have to keep actively doing this because the culture, the whole world around me wants me to be gynocentric, even if I don't want to be. And that's something I've had to really seriously, like, I'm trying to unlearn gynocentrism and lean towards what I would call a humanitarian outlook. I don't want to use the term egalitarian because that implies something else. I would say maybe like I believe in equality of accountability and equality of opportunity. I don't think men and women are equal in the sense that I don't think women can do everything men can do and men can do everything women can do. Like, I think women, for example, there are some jobs women are very good at, like nursing, psychology. Women tend to be very good in those jobs. I do think as well, though, the problem, because of feminist bias, unfortunately, there are, like, for example, I can't imagine how awful it would be for a man to have a female therapist who is a feminist. I feel like that would just be awful. So it's very, very sick. And, we could definitely do a future talk on this, but we're coming to the end of our stream now. So, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Theo. You're very, very good. You're absolutely wonderful. Very, very great conversation. Yeah, please give me some final thoughts before we wrap up. Anything you'd like to say before we close?
Well, I was just looking at the chat, and I was looking at this, and what I would say to this is broadly speaking, this is just to that one chat, but this is broadly speaking to all guys: do not give up. The future of Western civilization depends on you not giving up. And even though women are really fussy right now, we have to form relationships with them so that the next generation can exist. You owe it to your ancestors. You have a duty to your ancestors to continue the civilization, and they're going to be so much nicer once they're in relationship. And I know they're fussy, but they're not all fussy. One of them
women are
like
terrible. I've talked to some
they're not.
very, very good women on this channel. And I call myself, I have a subreddit called Women's Advocates. And the reason for that is to show that I think there needs to be like a non-feminist space that talks about women and women's issues, which is basically what it really is basically like anti-feminism, but not anti-women. That's my position. Because
Right.
even like, I've had some really, really bad experiences with women, and I don't want to talk about that too much, but like, that the females, there's I like a lot of, there's so many fictional female characters that I love that for me portray like, and I say this because I love fiction, that portray like positive feminine qualities. And there's a very positive influence of the feminine. It doesn't have to be feminist. It doesn't have to be ideological or politicized. So I want to see more of that. And, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm really grateful to everyone who's watching. Thank you very much. And, we got to keep on, like, unfortunately, this is a cultural war. It's a cultural war, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that people should continue to really work on themselves, like really work on yourself, work on who you are, and cultivating, love for everything that you do, and find something you're passionate about and care about, because that will make life a lot less horrible. But thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Potentially next week, I'm going to be debating a radical feminist for the first time on my podcast. The person hasn't responded to my email yet. They said they were down, but yeah, if not, I'll just be doing the usual stream the following week. But yeah, oh wait, no, actually, that's not true. I have another stream actually next Friday. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, just checking my calendar. Anyway, thank you everyone for tuning in. This is The Rational Female. And yeah, until I'm next live, goodbye.